Good day, folks. This is Greg Judy at Green Pastures Farm. Tonight's topic is going to be a multitude of questions that are always coming up on our YouTube channel. And so Jan, my wife, wrote down a lot of the... Introduce yourself, Jan.
Yeah, I'm Jan Judy-March, and I'm with him.
Yeah, so Jan wrote down a bunch of them, and I thought it'd be a good topic to kind of go over a lot of the commonly asked questions. Some of the things that I talk about, I guess, I take for granted that people know what we're doing and what the description is, but Jan actually sat down and wrote down several of them. And so we're going to go over some of those tonight and explain what I'm talking about when I make some of these phrases about grazing and such on Green Pastures Farm. So Jan, you want to fire the first one at me?
Yeah, so some of you will know, but just understand it's like when you go to college, there's always somebody going, ooh, I don't know what that means, and they're too afraid to ask. So Greg has replied to them, but I'm certain there's somebody else out there with some of these same questions. So, first question is, why do some cows have horns, and how do you remove those horns?
Good question. So, a lot of people come onto the farm, especially people that don't have a lot of farming background, and they automatically assume that if a cow's got horns, it must be a bull.
Or it's really mean.
Yeah, or it's mean. Yeah, so I get kind of tickled by that. And, just because an animal has horns does not mean it's a bull. It's just genetics. A pure blood South Poles do not have horns.
Or should not have.
Well, they should not have. Occasionally you'll see one that might have scurs.
And what are scurs?
I was going to explain that.
Okay.
A scur is a little tiny growth that comes out of their head where the horn should be. And it may get as long as 2 inches, but it's not going to form a point. It always stays flat on top. And that's what they call them. They call them scurs. But horns, a lot of people don't like horns, and so, they kind of get scared of them and whatever. But if you have an animal that has a horn and she's aggressive with them, that's something you probably want to get rid of. Get rid of the animal. If she's an aggressive animal, you don't need animals that have a weapon on their head trying to get you. We're not going to keep an animal like that, but you can get rid of them. There's what they call dehorners. There's actually a paste that you can put on them when they're a young calf. And then you first start seeing that little button come out, you can put a paste on that and it stops the growth of the horn. Or they have a tool that actually cuts the horn off, and that can be a little bit stressful on the animal. Or just, you can leave the horns intact and you can cut the tips off of them. If you just cut the tip off the horn after it gets grown out, they can't use it as a weapon anymore. It's just a blunt end, and it doesn't really bother the animals.
And usually it's not a weapon towards you.
No. They'll use it on another cow to push her out of the way around the hay or whatever, or the water tank or something. But that's kind of our discussion on horns.
But what's the best way not to have horns?
Well, the best way not to have horns is to use a polled bull. So if you have an animal that's polled, that means they don't throw horns. And if you have a cow that has horns, you breed a polled bull to that cow, there's a chance you might get a little horn on some of those calves. But a polled cow and a polled bull, you're not going to have any horns. So, yeah.
So one of the questions was, when do we wean our calves? And you might go into how we used to do it.
Yeah, so years ago, probably around 30 years ago, we wean like everybody else did. And the common practice on weaning a calf, let's just say your calf was born in the spring, in April, and 7 months later is that typical weaning date. The calf is taken away from the mother cow, and you break that bond, and that allows the cow to dry up. In other words, she's not producing milk anymore. And the calf, it's pretty stressful on the calf for 3 to 4 days. They'll bawl and just scream, and they want their mama back so bad.
Okay. So how did we do it before? I mean, how did we do that physically?
Yeah, so we used to do it. But we did it a little different. We called it across the fence weaning. And so we had electric wires, 4 of them, high tensile wire fence, and we put the calf on one side with his herd mate, so there'd be like, let's say 30, 40 calves in there with him or her. And the cows were on the other side of the fence, so they could see each other, and they could actually touch noses, but they physically couldn't come through that fence without getting shot. And so that was a lot less stressful than just taking the calf and removing it 100% away from the cow. And so it made the weaning process go a lot smoother. And when you do that, you want to make sure that the calf has grass to eat or hay or something over there to take its mind off of mama. And the mother cow, it's nice if they have something to eat as well. And usually 2 to 3 days, it's done. They'll bawl a little bit and then they just go on and go back to being cattle. But now, so we progressed from that, and for many years now, I guess around 17 years, we have not weaned our animals. And people go, what do you mean you don't wean? Well, we don't wean. And so we let the cow wean the calf. And it was a tough go at the start. I mean, there was cows that wouldn't wean their calves. They would just continue to suckle them. And those cows would get pulled down in the late winter, March, April. I mean, they get ready to calve again. They haven't weaned their calf.
So their body condition would be lower?
They would lose weight. That's right. And so those cows we just got rid of. And now we've been on this practice for, 17 years. And there'll still be an occasional cow that doesn't wean a calf. And if she gets thin, we just get rid of them. But now, let me clarify something. On the bull calves, March 1st is when we take the bulls out.
Well, that's my next question.
Well, I'm just saying, we do wean
right.
the bull calves 7 months and older. They are taken away from the cow at that time. We don't want a 7-month-old bull calf out there in the wintertime, late winter, March, April, breeding our cows, which would give us winter calving. So, yeah.
Okay. So now that we're talking about bulls, there was a question, how long are the bulls with the cows? And how old are those bulls? And do the little ones breed?
Okay, so the bulls are taken out of our cow herd March 1st.
And why do we do that?
Well, if you go from March until July, let's count those months. March, April, May, June. That's 4 months. Okay? So if you count back from March 4 months, so you got that puts you back to November. So by not having those bulls with those cows during those 4 months, you're not going to have calves in December, January, February, March. Okay, that's 4 months. And I don't want to be having calves in the middle of the winter. A cow that calves in the middle of the winter, it's a pretty tough go on her. I mean, there's no green grass. She drops the calf out in the cold weather. There's a good chance the calf may freeze to death. And there's also a good chance that calf's going to pull that cow down pretty low. Body condition, because she's milking pretty hard. She's fresh lactation. She's got to produce milk on hay or forage, or stockpile forage. It's cold weather. It's hard on them.
And then you got the mud and.
Yep. And when a baby calf is born in the winter, guess what? They got their summer hair coat on. How are they going to stay warm? We don't calve in barns. We don't think that's natural. It's not good. That's how you get scours. You get sickness in your calves. Calve on green grass when the weather's warm. That's what the wildlife do. I mean, you don't see a deer, a white-tailed doe out there dropping a fawn in February. It's not natural. Now, I want to clarify something. I think I may have ruffled some feathers in, the Montana, Wyoming type, ranchers. Those guys have a very short growing season, and the only way they can make that work, according, what I've conversed with them, is they said, look, we got to calve early. If we don't have enough growing season to get that calf marketable by the fall. So, whatever works in your environment. But here
in your area.
In your area. But here in Missouri, we have April, May, June, July, August, September, October. And those are all months that the calf can eat grass and grow. So we are fortunate in that respect. So we take the bulls out in March and they go back in July. And why don't we take those bulls out after 45 days? Well, we'd have to put them somewhere. And that's another group of animals. We have a lot of bulls. And why are we running so many bulls? Well, we sell bulls. We sell South Pole grass genetic bulls. And we have a very good market for these, what we call smaller frame, mature sized bull. Our bulls are mature about 1,200 pounds, not 2,000. We don't want a 2,000 bull. We don't want a 2,000 pound bull on our farm. They're going to tear your farm up. They're too big. They're too heavy. They break your cows down. They destroy our pastures. And we want genetics that we can finish a grass-fed steer on in 24 to 30 months. So if you're using a 2,000 pound bull, you're not going to get there. And he's not going to produce a 1,000 pound heifer, or a mature cow is somewhere between 1,000 to 1,100 pounds. So the bulls are left in with the cows until March. And by doing that, we winter one herd. So we got the heifers, we've got the young steers, the bull, everything, cows, everything is in one herd all through the winter up until March. It makes it a breeze to winter your animals with one herd. You got one water point, one mineral point, and one paddock move, morning and night. And why do we move our cows twice a day? We're going to get into that too. But yeah, so the bulls are in there until March, and then they're taken out. So
and then the second part is, how old are our bulls, and do the little ones breed?
Yeah, so how old are the bulls? We don't keep a bull past 2 years of age. All of our bulls are marketed usually around 16 to 24 months. A bull, you got to watch them. Those little guys can breed sometimes at 7 months old. And they'll be up riding cows. And why are they riding the cows? They're trying to breed them. And so a lot of times they can't get the job done, but I'm not going to take a chance. When they're 7 months old, from March on, we're watching that calendar. We have a recording chart of every animal in that herd. We got an ear tag, and we know when they were born. And so in March, all of them come out that are 7 months and older. In April, the ones that turn 7 months, those are taken out. May, same deal. June, same deal. So as the summer progresses, early summer, our bull herd is growing. Those little guys are being taken out of that cow herd. I don't want to take a chance. I'm not going to let them breed our cows. What was this last part of that?
Yeah, well, you kind of answered it. Do the little ones breed?
They will. Those little guys, 7 months and older, some of them can breed, and you don't want that. You don't want to be calving in wintertime. So that's why we leave them. Most people turn a bull in for 30 to 45 days, and they take them out, and then they preg check, 45 to 60 days later, and the cows that bred, they keep, and the ones that don't, they get rid of. There's nothing wrong with that. We just do things a little different here.
Yeah. And so it's not here on the questions, but what do we do when we pull out those bulls and those young bulls in March? What do we do?
Yeah, what do we do with them? They go into the sheep flock, and so we don't want. So now we've got the cattle mob, we've got a bull herd, and then if we don't put them in with the sheep, now we've got 3 herds being rotated around our farm in the early springtime. That's disaster. Absolute disaster.
Why is that?
Because you're going to chew off all your grass right when it's trying to get started in the springtime. You got 3 herds going around your farm at the same time.
And you're driving yourself crazy, moving them twice a day.
It's going to kill you. It's absolutely going to kill your grass production. So put those bulls with your sheep. And the sheep, we've got the guard dogs in there. We'll pasture those bulls next to the sheep flock for 1 to 2 days, just so the dogs get used to the bulls. They can't get to them, but they can see them and they can bark at them and they can kind of get used to seeing bulls. Then we put them in together. And the dogs will typically run the bulls around the paddock once or twice, and after that, they don't pay any attention to each other. They kind of get used to each other. And so by doing that, we're getting ready to be lambing. So now in May, by May, that's when we lamb, May 1st, those bulls will be in there when they start lambing. Now, the sheep, because we have to slow down the movement, because now we've got new mothers out there with baby lambs, you can't move those new lambs at the speed that you need to be moving that bull herd. And so the bull herd will be moved out in front. And they take off on a separate rotation. But as soon as those lambs are done, everything's done lambing, you'd be surprised. In 7 days, those little baby lambs, they can travel. Then we put the bulls back into the sheep flock. And we have a flock and a herd together. And they'll stay together until we dump the bulls back in with the cows in July.
So I think one last question for this session would be, so we're pulling out the bulls, but we also assess the quality of the animals at that particular time, and what do we do?
Yeah, so the bulls, when they're taken out, you can go through there and tell pretty well which ones you want to keep at bulls. And those are the ones that have a really nice balanced set of testicles. In other words, they're evenly matched on each side. One's not lopsided, one's hanging down here. Or twisted. Hairy, you don't want a lot of hair on the testicles of your bulls. The sheath on the bottom of the stomach where the penis is kept. You don't want a big, long, hairy sheath on a bull. All that's going to do is collect weed seeds and burrs, and it's an inferior trait on your bull. You want a nice, tight sheath. You want to be masculine. Your bull shouldn't look like a cow. You need to have a masculinity. So you need the crest in the neck, good shoulders on the bull. He should look like a man, okay? A good square butt on him, a nice straight back line. And above all, that bull needs to be docile. If he looks at you like you like to kick your tail or kind of come after you, that's not a bull. That's a predator. You need to take it and ban him. He's a steer. He doesn't need to be reproducing those genetics. You're gonna turn your whole herd into a bunch of mean ones. So don't put up with that. We're not gonna sell anybody a bull that's gonna come after you. No way. It's just not worth it.
And then what do we do with those steers?
So those steers are marketed. Those will be put back into the cow herd. Because they can't breed. They can't breed. And so they're put back in the cow herd. I'll tell you this, folks. The more animals you can keep together in one herd and move those around your farm periodically, preferably morning, night, once a day, whatever you can do and keep your job. If you work in town or whatever, that's fine. But make it so that it's sustainable to your lifestyle. Okay? And move those animals. Don't leave them in one spot very long. Make sure they get clean ground every day. You're not going to have any health issues. Very few. That's why we just don't hardly ever have any health issues with our animals, because we're constantly putting them onto fresh, clean ground. So with that, we've gone on long enough. Jan got some good questions out there. I think a lot of good questions, and I think people have been wondering about those. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button on the way out. And the like.
And the like.
And the like, that's right.
Oh, and we do now have the hats on the webpage.
Yep.
greenpasturesfarm.net, and place an order.
Yep.
We have 4 different colors.
And Jan, what did you put up this last week?
Yeah. So we've been trying to go through and update our webpage, and I finally figured out how to put the Airbnb. So it's the Scott House in Clark, Missouri, and I've already had a couple people sign up. So thank you for supporting us. If you're going to come to the farm to buy a bale and roller, look at the bulls, you might check that out. It's very reasonable. $65 with a $30 cleaning fee, and it's right here on the farm. And usually if you're one of the customers, you get to go help move the cattle if it works out.
Yeah. All right, folks, that's the Airbnb, and it's got a lot of history to it. That's where I kind of grew up at, and we redid the old house and made a nice little place out of it. So anyway, I'm going to sign off here. Everyone have a good one, and we'll see y'all down the road.